Claire Bennett thought the worst thing about her twin sister's wedding would be watching everyone pretend not to stare at her missing arm. She was wrong. The worst thing was the moment Adrian Cross walked through those vineyard doors. The man she'd been messaging for months, the one person who made her feel seen, and revealed himself as someone far more dangerous than she'd ever imagined. Within hours, her sister's perfect celebration would collapse into blood and gunfire, and Claire would discover that being invisible might have been the only thing keeping her alive. If you want to see how a woman who spent her whole life in the shadows becomes the one thing a ruthless man can't live without, stay until the end. And drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. The September sun hung low over the Sonoma Valley, casting everything in that golden hour glow that made wedding photographers lose their minds. Claire Bennett stood at the edge of the vineyard's gravel parking lot, one hand gripping the strap of her bag. The other, well, there was no other. Just the empty sleeve of her dress, pinned neatly at the shoulder in a way her mother had insisted looked dignified. She hated that word, dignified, like her body was something that needed to be managed, dressed up, made acceptable for public consumption. The accident had been 4 years ago. A drunk driver, a guardrail, and a split-second decision to shield her sister from the impact. Stella had walked away with a concussion. Claire had woken up in a hospital bed 3 days later to learn that her right arm had been too damaged to save. The doctors had been kind. Her family had been devastated. And Stella had cried for weeks, blamed herself, promised she'd never let Claire feel alone. That promise had lasted about 8 months. Claire exhaled slowly, watching a stream of guests make their way toward the ceremony site. A terraced lawn surrounded by rows of grapevines, white chairs arranged in perfect symmetry, an arch dripping with roses and ivy. Everything looked like it had been ripped straight from a magazine spread. Stella had always been good at that, making things look perfect. "You coming, or are you planning to stand out here all night?" Claire turned. Her cousin Maya was leaning against a Mercedes, arms crossed, eyebrow raised. She was wearing a dress that probably cost more than Claire's rent, and she looked annoyed in that specific way people did when they had to pretend to care. "I'm coming," Claire said. "Your mom's been asking where you are. She's worried you're going to, I don't know, skip out or something." "I'm here, aren't I?" Maya shrugged. "Barely." She pushed off the car and started walking, not bothering to wait. Claire followed, keeping a few steps behind. It was easier that way. Less chance of someone trying to make conversation, less chance of that awful moment when their eyes would flick to her shoulder, then away, then back again like they couldn't help themselves. The ceremony site was filling up fast. 200 guests, maybe more. Stella had wanted intimate, which apparently meant everyone she'd ever met plus their extended families. Claire spotted her parents near the front, her father in a crisp navy suit, her mother fussing with the flower arrangements even though the wedding planner was literally right there. "Claire!" Her mother's voice cut through the crowd. "There you are. I was starting to think, oh, never mind. Come here, let me look at you." Claire walked over, bracing herself. Her mother's smile was bright, practiced, and didn't reach her eyes. She took Claire's hand, the one she had, and squeezed it. "You look lovely, sweetheart. That dress is perfect on you." It wasn't. The dress was a soft lavender bridesmaid gown that Stella had picked out, and it hung awkwardly on Claire's frame because the tailor hadn't quite figured out how to balance the asymmetry. But Claire nodded anyway. "Thanks, Mom. Are you feeling okay? Do you need anything? Water? A seat?" "I'm fine." Her mother hesitated, and Claire could see the worry lines deepen around her eyes. "I know today might be hard for you, with everything that happened with Derek. Mom, don't." Derek had been Claire's boyfriend, past tense. He'd left 6 months after the accident, right around the time he realized that dating someone with one arm meant people stared at them in restaurants. He tried to make it sound noble, something about not wanting to hold her back, about her needing time to heal. But Claire had seen the relief in his eyes when she'd told him it was fine, that she understood. She hadn't understood. She'd just been too tired to fight. "I just want you to be happy," her mother said quietly. "I know." Claire pulled her hand back gently. "I'm going to find my seat." She didn't wait for a response, just turned and walked toward the rows of chairs, scanning for her name. The wedding planner had assigned seats with the precision of a military operation. Family on the left, friends on the right, and Claire, as usual, somewhere in the middle where she wouldn't draw too much attention. She found her spot in the third row, next to her Uncle Richard, who was already half asleep despite the ceremony not having started yet. Perfect. She sat down, smoothed her dress, and tried to ignore the way the woman in front of her kept glancing back, her gaze catching on Claire's shoulder before darting away. The string quartet started playing. Everyone stood. And then Stella appeared at the end of the aisle, a vision in white lace and tulle, her smile radiant, her hand resting on their father's arm. Claire's chest tightened. Stella looked exactly like her. Same dark hair, same green eyes, same sharp cheekbones. They'd been identical once, before the accident, before Claire's body became something people had to look past to see her. Now Stella was the beautiful one, the whole one, the one everyone looked at and saw a future. The ceremony blurred. Claire heard the vows, heard Stella's voice crack with emotion, heard the officiant pronounce them husband and wife. She clapped when everyone else clapped, smiled when everyone else smiled, and when it was over, she slipped out of her seat and headed straight for the reception tent before anyone could corner her into small talk. The tent was massive. White fabric draped from a wooden frame, chandeliers hanging from the ceiling, tables covered in cream linens and gold-rimmed china. A band was setting up in the corner, and waitstaff moved through the space with trays of champagne and hors d'oeuvres. Claire grabbed a glass of champagne and found a quiet corner near the back. Her phone buzzed in her bag. She pulled it out, and despite everything, her heart did a stupid little flip when she saw the name on the screen. Adrian Cross. She'd met him, if you could call it that, 3 months ago on a forum for people dealing with limb loss. It wasn't something she talked about, not with her family, not with friends, but late at night when the silence got too heavy, she'd found herself scrolling through posts from people who understood what it felt like to have your body betray you, to have strangers treat you like a tragedy. Adrian had messaged her first, said he'd read one of her comments about feeling invisible and that it had stuck with him. They'd started talking, just messages at first, then voice calls, then hours-long conversations that stretched into the early morning. He never asked about her arm, never treated her like she was fragile. He just talked to her, like she was a person, like she mattered. She didn't know what he looked like, didn't know where he lived or what he did for work. He kept those things vague, said he valued privacy. And maybe that should have been a red flag, but Claire didn't care. For the first time in years, someone made her feel like more than the girl who'd lost something. She opened the message. Adrian, how's the wedding? Claire hesitated, then typed back. Claire, surviving, barely. Adrian, that bad? Claire, it's fine, just a lot. Adrian, you don't have to stay if you don't want to. Claire, I can't just leave, it's my sister's wedding. Adrian, you can do anything you want, Claire. You just have to decide you're worth it. She stared at the message, her throat tight. He always did that. Said things that made her feel seen in a way that was almost unbearable. Before she could respond, someone called her name. Claire, there you are. She looked up. Stella was weaving through the crowd, her dress bustling around her legs, her face flushed with excitement. She reached Claire and grabbed her hand, squeezing tight. I've been looking everywhere for you. Come on, we're doing photos. Stella, Please? Just family shots. It'll be quick, I promise. Claire wanted to say no. Wanted to tell her sister that she didn't want to spend the next hour standing in front of a camera, watching the photographer struggle to frame her in a way that didn't make her missing arm the focal point. But Stella was looking at her with those wide, hopeful eyes, and Claire had never been good at saying no to her. Okay, she said quietly. Stella beamed. Thank you, you're the best. She dragged Claire outside, where the photographer had set up near the vineyard rows. The rest of the family was already there. Parents, grandparents, cousins. Stella's new husband looking vaguely uncomfortable in his tuxedo. All right, everyone, the photographer called. Let's start with the full family shot. They arranged themselves in a line. Claire ended up on the far left, her mother on one side, her father on the other. The photographer fiddled with his camera, adjusted the lighting, then paused. Claire, honey, can you turn just a bit to the right? Yeah, like that. Perfect. She knew what he was doing, angling her so the missing arm was less visible, making her easier to look at. She turned. The camera flashed, once, twice, 3 times. Beautiful. Okay, Now just the immediate family. It went on like that for 20 minutes. Different groupings, different poses, the photographer's voice, a constant stream of direction. And through it all, Claire felt herself shrinking, becoming smaller, less. Finally, it was over. Stella hugged her, thanked her again, and then disappeared back into the crowd with her husband. Claire stood there for a moment, alone in the fading light, and felt the exhaustion settle into her bones. Her phone buzzed again. Adrian. Still surviving? She smiled despite herself. Claire. Barely. Adrian. What if I told you that you didn't have to do this alone? Claire. What do you mean? Adrian. I mean, what if I came to the wedding? Claire's breath caught. She read the message again, sure she'd misunderstood. Claire. You're not serious. Adrian. I am. Claire. You don't even know where I am. Adrian. Sonoma Valley, Bennett Shaw wedding. I'm good at finding information when I need to. Her heart was pounding now. Part of her wanted to laugh, to brush it off as a joke, but there was something in the way he'd written it, calm, certain, that made her think he wasn't joking at all. Claire. Adrian, you can't just show up at a wedding you weren't invited to. Adrian. Watch me. Claire. Why would you do that? Adrian. Because you told me you didn't want to be alone. And I don't want you to be alone either. She stared at the screen, her mind racing. This was crazy. He was a stranger. She didn't even know his last name. Well, she did, Cross, but that was it. And yet the thought of him actually being here, of having someone in this crowd who saw her as more than the girl with one arm. Claire. I don't know what to say. Adrian. Say yes. She hesitated. Then, before she could talk herself out of it, she typed. Claire. Okay. Yes. Adrian. Good. I'll see you soon. Claire shoved her phone back in her bag, her hands shaking. This was insane. He wasn't actually going to show up. He couldn't. It was just talk, just him trying to make her feel better, but a small, desperate part of her hoped she was wrong. The reception started in full swing. Dinner was served, filet mignon and roasted vegetables, plated with the kind of precision that made Claire wonder if anyone actually enjoyed eating it. She picked at her food, nodding along to her uncle's rambling story about his golf game, only half listening. The band started playing. Stella and her husband took the floor for their first dance, and everyone clapped and took pictures. Then the DJ opened it up, and the tent filled with music and laughter and the clinking of glasses. Claire stayed at her table, watched people dance, watched couples lean into each other, watched Stella glow in the center of it all. And then the doors opened. The music didn't stop. The laughter didn't pause. But Claire felt the shift immediately, a change in the air, a sudden weight that made her skin prickle. She turned. A man stood in the entrance of the tent, tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a black suit that looked like it cost more than most people made in a month. His hair was dark, neatly styled, and his face, sharp jawline, high cheekbones, eyes that were almost unsettling in their intensity, was the kind that made people stop talking mid-sentence. He didn't look around, didn't hesitate, just walked forward with the kind of confidence that came from knowing no one would dare stop him. And he was looking directly at Claire. Her heart stuttered. No, it couldn't be. But then he was there, standing in front of her table, and when he spoke, his voice was exactly the same as it had been on all those late-night calls, low, steady, impossibly calm. Hello, Claire. She stared at him. Adrian? He smiled. It was a small smile, barely there, but it softened the hard edges of his face. I told you I'd come. Around them, the room had gone quiet. People were staring now, openly, whispers starting to ripple through the crowd. Claire could see her mother across the tent, her face pale, her hand gripping her father's arm. Stella had stopped mid-conversation, her eyes wide. You... Claire's voice came out shaky. You actually came. I don't say things I don't mean. He pulled out the chair next to her and sat down, his movements precise, controlled. Hope you don't mind. She should have minded, should have asked him to leave, should have demanded to know how he found her, should have done 100 things that made sense. Instead, she just looked at him and felt something inside her chest crack open. I don't mind, she whispered. His smile widened just a fraction. Good. The whispers grew louder. Claire caught fragments. Who is that? I've never seen him before. Did Stella invite him? And then, quieter, more unsettling. Isn't that Adrian Cross? Oh my God, it is. What is he doing here? Claire frowned. Why are people looking at you like that? Adrian's expression didn't change. Because they know who I am. And who are you? He met her gaze, and for the first time since he'd walked in, she saw something flicker in his eyes. Not fear, not regret. Just acknowledgement. Someone you probably shouldn't be sitting next to, he said quietly. Before she could respond, her father appeared at the table, his face tight. Claire. A word. Now. Claire's stomach dropped. Dad. Now. Adrian stood, his movement slow, deliberate. He was taller than her father, and the difference was impossible to ignore. Mr. Bennett. I apologize for the intrusion. I'm a friend of Claire's. Her father's jaw clenched. I know who you are, Mr. Cross, and I know you weren't invited. You're right. I wasn't. Adrian's tone was polite, but there was steel underneath. But Claire wanted me here, so here I am. Claire doesn't know what she wants. Her father's voice was low, dangerous. And you need to leave before this becomes a problem. Dad, stop! Claire stood, her heart pounding. He's my guest. Her father looked at her, and the disappointment in his eyes made her chest ache. Claire, you have no idea what you're doing. Maybe not, she said, her voice shaking. But for once, can you just let me make my own choices? The silence that followed was suffocating. Her father stared at her, then at Adrian, then back at her. Finally, he stepped back. Fine, he said quietly. But when this goes wrong, don't say I didn't warn you. He walked away. Claire sank back into her chair, her hands trembling. Adrian sat down beside her again, his expression unreadable. I'm sorry. For what? For making this harder. She shook her head. You didn't make anything harder. You're the only person here who actually wanted to be near me. His gaze softened. That's not true. It is. She looked down at her lap, her voice breaking. You don't know what it's like. Being the broken one, the one everyone tiptoes around. I've been invisible for so long, and then you saw me. You made me feel like I mattered. Adrian reached over and took her hand, the one she had, and his grip was warm, solid, real. You do matter, Claire, he said quietly. More than you know. She looked up at him, and for a moment the rest of the room fell away. It was just them. Just his hand in hers. Just the weight of his words settling into her chest. And then someone screamed. The sound cut through the tent like a knife. Claire jerked around, her heart racing, and saw people stumbling back from the entrance, panic spreading like wildfire. 3 men stood in the doorway. They were dressed in dark clothes, their faces hard, and every single one of them was armed. Adrian was on his feet instantly, his body positioned between Claire and the door. Stay behind me, he said, his voice cold, clipped. What's happening? Claire's voice was barely a whisper. Something I was hoping wouldn't happen tonight. One of the men stepped forward, his gun raised, and when he spoke, his voice was loud enough to silence the entire room. Adrian Cross, you've got 5 seconds to come with us, or everyone in this tent dies. The armed man's countdown started before anyone could move. 5. Claire's entire body locked. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The gun in the man's hand wasn't like the ones she'd seen in movies. It was real, solid, and pointed directly at the crowd. 4. Adrian's hand shot out and gripped her wrist. Not hard enough to hurt, but firm enough that she felt the urgency radiating through his skin. When I move, he said, his voice so low only she could hear, you run, straight through the back exit. Don't look back. I'm not leaving you. 3. Claire. Adrian's eyes locked on hers, and the intensity in them made her breath catch. Trust me, please. She didn't get a chance to respond. Adrian turned, stepped forward, and raised both hands in a gesture that somehow managed to look both surrendering and commanding at the same time. Victor, he said, his voice cutting through the panic like a blade. You always did have a flair for the dramatic. The armed man, Victor, apparently, smiled. It was the kind of smile that made Claire's skin crawl. Adrian? Been a while. Not long enough. That's hurtful. Victor lowered his gun slightly, though the other two men kept theirs raised. Here I thought you'd be happy to see an old friend. We were never friends. No? Victor's gaze swept across the room, taking in the terrified guests, the overturned champagne glasses, Stella frozen mid-step in her wedding dress. Then what were we? Partners? Brothers in arms? Or was it something else entirely? Adrian didn't respond. His posture hadn't changed, but Claire could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his hands had curled into fists at his sides. Victor's smile widened. You didn't tell them, did you? All these nice people at this nice wedding, and they have no idea who you really are. What I am isn't their concern. Oh, but it is. Victor took another step forward. See, when a man like Adrian Cross shows up somewhere, it means something. It means territory. It means power. It means... He paused, his eyes sliding past Adrian to land directly on Claire. It means he's found something worth protecting. Claire's blood went cold. Adrian shifted, blocking Victor's line of sight. She's not part of this. Isn't she? Victor tilted his head. You don't show up to random weddings, Adrian. You don't sit in corners holding hands with pretty girls unless they mean something. And if she means something to you... He raised his gun again, this time pointing it squarely at Claire. Then she means something to me, too. The tent erupted. People screamed, scrambled backward, knocked over chairs in their desperation to get away. Claire's father lunged forward, but one of Victor's men intercepted him, shoving him back hard enough that he stumbled. Adrian moved faster than Claire thought possible. 1 second he was standing in front of her. The next, he had closed the distance to Victor, his hand clamping around the man's wrist and twisting until the gun clattered to the ground. Victor laughed even as Adrian forced him to his knees. There he is, the Adrian Cross I remember. Tell me, how long has it been since you put your hands on someone? 2 years? 3? Long enough that I'm out of practice, Adrian said quietly. But not so long that I've forgotten how. One of Victor's men raised his gun, aiming at Adrian's head. Let him go. Adrian didn't move. You pull that trigger and you'll be dead before he hits the ground. Big talk from someone who's been playing civilian. Try me. The standoff stretched. Claire's heart was hammering so hard she thought it might crack a rib. Around them, the guests had pressed themselves against the tent walls, as far from the center as they could get. Her mother was sobbing somewhere to the left. Stella was being held back by her new husband, her face white as paper, and Claire just stood there, frozen, useless, her missing arm aching phantom pains she hadn't felt in months. Victor broke the silence first. You know what your problem is, Adrian? You think you can just walk away. Build a nice, quiet life. Pretend you're something you're not. He twisted in Adrian's grip, looking up at him with something that might have been pity. But men like us don't get to walk away. We carry it with us. Every choice we made, every person we... Enough! Adrian's voice was ice. You want me? Fine. Let everyone go and I'll come with you. No fight. No bloodshed. Adrian, no... Claire's voice cracked. He didn't look at her. I mean it, Victor. These people have nothing to do with our history. Let them walk. Victor considered this. Then he smiled again, slower this time. Tempting. But I think I'll take the girl too. Insurance, you know. Make sure you don't do anything stupid. That's not the deal. I'm changing the deal. Adrian's jaw clenched. For a moment, Claire thought he might actually break Victor's wrist. She could see the calculation in his eyes, the way he was measuring distances, angles, how fast he could disarm the other two men before they fired. But then Victor spoke again, quieter now. You make a move and my guys don't just shoot you. They shoot into the crowd. Could be her parents. Could be her sister. Could be that kid over there who can't be more than 10. He paused. Your call, Adrian, but make it fast. I'm getting bored. Adrian released him. Victor stood, brushing off his jacket like he'd just been inconvenienced rather than nearly disarmed. He picked up his gun, checked it, then gestured to his men. Tie him up and bring the girl. No. Claire started to back away, but one of the men was already grabbing her arm, yanking her forward. She stumbled, her balance off, and hit the ground hard enough that her vision blurred. Claire! Adrian's voice was raw, desperate in a way she'd never heard before. She looked up, saw him straining against the zip ties they'd fastened around his wrists, saw the fury and helplessness warring on his face. The man hauled her to her feet, his grip bruising. "Move. Please," she whispered. I'm not." "Shut up." They dragged her toward the exit. Adrian was already being pushed ahead of her, his shoulders rigid, his head turned so he could keep her in his sight. Behind them, the tent was chaos, crying, shouting, her mother's voice rising above it all, begging them to stop. And then they were outside into the cool night air, and Claire saw the black SUV idling near the vineyard entrance. Victor opened the back door. "Get in." Adrian climbed in first. Claire was shoved in after him and the door slammed shut. Victor got in the front passenger seat and the driver, a fourth man she hadn't seen inside, put the vehicle in gear. They were moving before Claire could even process what was happening. She sat there, pressed against the door, her whole body shaking. Adrian was next to her, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating off him, but he wasn't looking at her. He was staring straight ahead, his expression carved from stone. "Where are you taking us?" Claire managed. Victor glanced back. "Somewhere quiet. Somewhere we can talk without interruptions." "About what?" "About old debts, old mistakes, old scores that never got settled." His eyes flicked to Adrian. "You disappeared 3 years ago, Adrian. Vanished without a word. Left a lot of people wondering if you were dead." "I left because I was done," Adrian said flatly. "You don't get to be done. Not in our line of work. I made it clear I wasn't coming back." "Yeah, well, Marcos didn't believe you. Thought maybe you were just laying low, waiting for the right moment to make a move on his territory." Victor smiled. "But then I started hearing things. Rumors about you living clean, going to therapy groups, messaging support forums." His gaze slid to Claire. "Making friends." Claire's stomach twisted. Adrian's hands clenched. "Leave her out of this." "Can't do that. See, the moment you decided she was important, she became leverage. That's how this works. You know that." I know you're making a mistake." "Am I?" Victor turned fully in his seat now, his gun resting casually on his knee. "Because from where I'm sitting, you're zip-tied in the back of my car, and the girl you've been playing hero for is about 2 seconds from passing out. Doesn't seem like I'm the one making mistakes." Adrian didn't respond. But Claire saw the muscle jump in his jaw, saw the way his breathing had gone carefully controlled. They drove in silence after that. The vineyard disappeared behind them, replaced by dark stretches of highway and then narrow roads winding through hills. Claire tried to keep track of the turns, tried to memorize landmarks, but everything blurred together. She wanted to say something to Adrian, wanted to ask him what Victor had meant, what line of work they were talking about, why any of this was happening. But her throat was too tight, and the words wouldn't come. After what felt like hours but was probably only 20 minutes, the SUV turned onto a gravel road and pulled up to a warehouse. It was the kind of building that looked abandoned from the outside. Rusted siding, broken windows, weeds growing through cracks in the pavement. Victor got out first. "Bring them inside." The driver opened the back door and yanked Claire out. She stumbled again, caught herself against the side of the vehicle. Adrian was pulled out next, and even with his hands bound, he positioned himself between her and the men. They were herded through a side door and into the warehouse. Inside, it was worse than outside. The air smelled like mold and rust and something else Claire couldn't identify. A single overhead light flickered weakly, casting long shadows across stacks of old crates and machinery. Victor walked to the center of the space and turned. "Sit her down." One of the men grabbed a folding chair from against the wall and shoved Claire into it. She sat, her legs barely holding her weight. Adrian was forced to his knees a few feet away. He didn't fight it, just knelt there, his eyes never leaving Claire. Victor crouched down in front of him. "Here's how this is going to work. You're going to answer some questions. And if I like the answers, maybe the girl walks out of here. If I don't..." He shrugged. "Well, you can imagine." "Ask your questions," Adrian said. "Where's the list?" "What list?" Victor backhanded him. The sound cracked through the warehouse, and Claire flinched. Adrian's head snapped to the side, blood welling at the corner of his mouth. But he didn't make a sound. "Don't play dumb," Victor said. "The list. The one you took when you left. Names, addresses, account numbers. Marcos wants it back." Adrian spit blood onto the floor. "I don't have it, liar." I destroyed it. 3 years ago. Burned every copy. Victor stared at him. Then he stood and pulled out his gun. He didn't point it at Adrian. He pointed it at Claire. Try again. I'm telling the truth, Adrian said, his voice urgent now. I destroyed it because I didn't want anything tying me to that life. I want it out, Victor. Completely out. Then you've got nothing to trade. Victor cocked the gun. Which means she's just dead weight. Wait. Adrian's composure cracked. Wait. There's another copy. Victor paused. Where? Safety deposit box. Bank in the city. I can get it for you, but I need time. How much time? A day, maybe 2. Victor considered this. Then he lowered the gun. You've got 24 hours. After that, I start sending her back to you in pieces. Claire's vision swam. She thought she might throw up. Adrian nodded. I'll get it. Good. Victor gestured to his men. Put him in the back room. The girl stays here. No. Adrian struggled as they grabbed him. You said if I cooperated. I said maybe she walks out. I didn't say when. Victor smiled. Consider this motivation. They dragged Adrian toward a door at the back of the warehouse. He fought the whole way, shouting Claire's name, and the sound of it made something inside her shatter. Then the door slammed shut, and she was alone with Victor and his men. Victor pulled up a crate and sat down across from her. So, Claire, right? She didn't answer. Strong, silent type. I can respect that. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. You know what's funny? Adrian spent years in this life, did things that would give you nightmares, and then he meets you, sweet, broken little thing, and suddenly he wants to be a good guy. He laughed. It's almost romantic. I don't know what you're talking about, Claire whispered. Sure you don't. Let me guess. He told you he was just some regular guy, maybe had a rough past, but he's working through it, and you believed him because he was nice to you, made you feel special. Victor's smile faded. Here's the truth, sweetheart. Adrian Cross ran one of the most efficient smuggling operations on the West Coast. Weapons, drugs, information. If it was illegal and profitable, he moved it. He's got more blood on his hands than you could count. Claire shook her head. You're lying. Am I? Ask yourself why a man like him would waste time on someone like you. What could you possibly offer him? He paused. Unless you were just convenient. A cover. A way to look harmless. Stop. He's using you, Claire, and when he said he's done, he'll disappear again. That's what men like him do. You don't know anything about him. I know everything about him. Victor stood. I know he left because he couldn't handle the pressure anymore. Couldn't stomach what we were building. Got soft. And now look where it got him. Tied up in a back room while I decide whether his girlfriend lives or dies. Claire's hands were shaking. She wanted to scream at him, to tell him he was wrong, that Adrian wasn't the person he was describing. But doubt had already started creeping in. All those late-night conversations, the way Adrian had deflected questions about his past. The fact that he'd shown up at the wedding with the kind of confidence that came from knowing no one would dare challenge him. Who was Adrian Cross? And why had he really come for her? Victor checked his watch. I'm going to go make some calls. Luca, stay with her. She tries anything. Break her other arm. The man, Luca, nodded. He was younger than Victor, maybe mid-20s, with a scar running down his left cheek. He leaned against the wall, arms crossed, watching her like she was a problem he was waiting to solve. Victor left. The warehouse fell silent except for the hum of the overhead light and Claire's uneven breathing. She sat there, trying to think, trying to figure out what to do, but her mind kept circling back to the same impossible question. How had her life gone from invisible twin at a wedding to hostage in a warehouse in the span of 2 hours? Time passed. She didn't know how much. Her phone was gone, taken when they'd searched her in the SUV. Her dress was torn at the hem from when she'd fallen. Her shoulder ached where Luca had grabbed her, and somewhere in the back of this building, Adrian was locked away, and she had no idea if he was hurt or planning or just as terrified as she was. The door at the back opened. Claire's head snapped up. Adrian stepped out. No, not stepped. Was shoved. His hands were still zip-tied, and there was a fresh bruise forming on his cheekbone. But his eyes were clear, focused, and when he saw her, something in his expression softened. Behind him, Victor appeared. Change of plans. Luca straightened. Boss? Marcos called. He wants proof Adrian's cooperating. Victor walked over to Claire and grabbed her arm, hauling her to her feet. So we're going to make a video. Adrian's going to tell Marcos exactly where the list is. And if he's lying... He pressed the gun against Claire's temple. Well, you get the idea. Claire's breath stopped. Adrian went very still. Victor, don't. Then start talking. They positioned them in front of one of the men holding a phone camera. Victor kept the gun pressed to Claire's head, his other hand gripping her shoulder hard enough to leave marks. Go ahead, Victor said. Tell Marcos what he wants to hear. Adrian looked directly into the camera. His voice was steady, controlled, but Claire could see the fear underneath. The list is in a safety deposit box at First National Bank, downtown branch. Box number 473. Key is taped under the desk in my old apartment on 7th Street. And the apartment number? Victor prompted. 308. Good. Victor lowered the gun. See? That wasn't so hard. The camera stopped recording. Victor shoved Claire back into the chair and gestured for his men to take Adrian back to the room. But before they could move, the warehouse's main door burst open. Everyone spun. Claire saw headlights flood the space, saw figures moving fast, heard shouting, and then gunfire. The world exploded into noise and chaos. Luca grabbed Claire, dragged her behind a stack of crates as bullets tore through the air. She screamed, couldn't help it. And then Adrian was there, somehow free of the zip ties, blood on his knuckles, his eyes wild. Stay down, he shouted over the gunfire. What's happening? Rival crew, they must have followed us. He glanced around the crate, ducked back as wood splintered near his head. We need to move. Can you run? Yes. Then run. He grabbed her hand and pulled her forward. They sprinted towards the side door, keeping low, weaving between crates as the gunfight raged behind them. Claire's legs felt like they were made of water, but Adrian's grip kept her upright, kept her moving. They burst through the door into the night. The gravel lot was lit by muzzle flashes from inside the warehouse. Adrian pulled her toward the tree line, and they ran, stumbling over uneven ground, branches whipping at Claire's face. Behind them, the gunfire was fading. But Claire could hear shouting, could hear engines starting. They reached a cluster of trees, and Adrian pulled her down behind a fallen log. They were both breathing hard, and Claire's whole body was shaking so badly her teeth chattered. Are you hurt? Adrian's hands were on her face, tilting her head, checking for injuries. I don't know. Look at me. Claire, look at me. She did. His face was inches from hers, streaked with dirt and blood, but his eyes were clear. We're going to be okay, he said. I promise. You can't promise that. I just did. A branch snapped somewhere to their left. Adrian went rigid, positioning himself in front of her again. But it was just a deer, startled by the noise, bounding away through the undergrowth. He exhaled slowly. We need to keep moving, get distance between us and them. Where do we go? There's a town about 3 miles east. We can call for help there. What about Victor? Victor's got bigger problems right now. Adrian helped her to her feet. Come on. They walked through the woods, moving as quietly as they could. Claire's dress caught on every branch, tore further with each step. Her feet hurt, her lungs burned, but she kept going because Adrian's hand was wrapped around hers, and if she stopped, she thought she might collapse entirely. After what felt like forever, they broke through the tree line and found themselves on a back road. In the distance, Claire could see lights. Civilization. They walked toward it. Neither of them spoke. What was there to say? Finally, they reached the edge of the town, a small, quiet place that looked like it shut down after 9 p.m. Adrian found a gas station that was still open and used their payphone to call someone. Claire didn't hear the conversation, just stood there, numb, while fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. When he hung up, he turned to her. Someone's coming to pick us up. We'll be safe soon. Safe? Claire repeated. The word felt foreign. Adrian stepped closer. I know you have questions. Questions. She laughed, and it came out broken. You think I have questions? Adrian, I was just held at gunpoint by someone who clearly knows you, who says you used to run a smuggling operation, who says you have blood on your hands. Her voice cracked. So yeah, I have questions, starting with, who the hell are you? He didn't flinch. Someone who made a lot of bad choices. Someone who spent years doing things I'm not proud of. Someone who tried to walk away and build something different. He paused. And someone who meant every word I ever said to you. How am I supposed to believe that? You're not. Not right now. He looked away. But I'm going to spend however long it takes proving it to you, if you'll let me. Claire wanted to yell at him, wanted to walk away, find her own way back, pretend this night had never happened. But she was so tired, and he was the only person standing between her and the darkness pressing in from all sides. So she just nodded. They waited in silence until a car pulled up, a nondescript sedan driven by a woman with sharp eyes and no questions. She drove them to a motel on the outskirts of town, handed Adrian a key, and left without a word. The room was small, dated, but clean. Adrian locked the door behind them, checked the windows, then finally let himself sink onto the edge of the bed. Claire stood in the middle of the room, still shaking. "You should sit," Adrian said quietly. She sat in the chair by the window, put her head in her hand, and finally let herself cry. Adrian didn't move, didn't try to comfort her, just let her break down, and somehow that made it easier. When the tears finally stopped, Claire looked up. "What happens now?" "Now we figure out how to end this," Adrian said. "Before Victor figures out that list doesn't exist. You lied to him. I had to. It was the only way to buy us time." "Time for what?" Adrian met her gaze. "Time to make sure you get out of this alive." Claire didn't sleep. She sat in that chair by the window and watched the parking lot while Adrian paced the room, his phone pressed to his ear, speaking in low tones to people whose names she didn't recognize. Every time headlights swept across the motel's exterior, her heart jumped. Every sound in the hallway made her flinch. Around 3 in the morning, Adrian finally hung up and sat down on the bed across from her. His shirt was torn at the collar, dried blood crusted at his hairline. He looked exhausted. "That was Marcus Chen," he said. "He's going to help." "Who's Marcus Chen?" "Someone I used to work with. Someone I trust." Adrian rubbed his face. "He's pulling together information on Victor's movements, where he's likely to go next, who he's working with now. And then what? Then we figure out how to get you somewhere safe while I deal with this." Claire's jaw tightened. "You mean while you go back to being whoever you were before?" "No. I mean while I clean up the mess I made by thinking I could just disappear, and it wouldn't matter." He looked at her. "I never wanted you involved in this, Claire. You have to believe that." "I don't know what to believe anymore." Her voice came out flat. "You let me think you were just, I don't know, some guy dealing with his own problems, someone normal, and the whole time you were what? A criminal? A smuggler?" "Yes." The bluntness of it hit her harder than any excuse would have. She wrapped her arm around herself. "How long?" 8 years, started when I was 22, ended 3 years ago when I walked away." "Why did you walk away?" Adrian was quiet for a long moment. "Because I watched someone die. Someone who didn't deserve it. And I realized that everything I'd been telling myself, that I was just moving product, that I wasn't responsible for what people did with it, was a lie I'd been using to sleep at night." He exhaled slowly. "I couldn't do it anymore, so I left." "Just like that?" "Just like that. Told Marcos I was done. Destroyed every record I had, changed my number, moved to a different city." He looked down at his hands. "Tried to become someone else." "And Victor?" "Victor was Marcos's enforcer, the guy who made sure everyone stayed in line. When I left, he took it personally. Thought I was undermining the operation, making him look weak." Adrian's expression hardened. "He's been looking for me ever since. I just didn't think he'd ever find me." Claire processed this. The pieces were starting to fit together, but they formed a picture she didn't want to see. "How did he find you?" "I don't know. I was careful. Used encrypted channels for the support group. Never posted personal information." He paused. "But if he knew I was messaging someone, if he tracked the forum traffic, he could have narrowed it down. So this is my fault." "No!" Adrian's voice was sharp. "This is my fault. Every part of it. You didn't ask for any of this. But I'm the reason he knows you're still alive. I'm the reason he showed up at the wedding." Her throat tightened. "My sister's wedding, Adrian. He ruined her wedding because of me." "He ruined it because of me," Adrian corrected. Don't take that on yourself. But it was too late. The guilt was already settling into Claire's chest like a weight. She thought of Stella, frozen in her white dress with a gun pointed at the crowd. Thought of her mother's screams, her father's fury, all because Claire had been lonely enough to trust a stranger on the internet. I need to call my family, she said quietly. Not yet. If Victor's monitoring them. I don't care. They probably think I'm dead. Adrian hesitated, then handed her his phone. Keep it short. Don't tell them where you are. Claire took the phone with shaking hands. She dialed her mother's number. It rang twice before someone picked up. Hello? Her father's voice, rough, strained. Dad, it's me. Claire, oh thank God, where are you? Are you hurt? I'm okay. I'm safe. Where are you? He repeated. I can't tell you that. I needed you to know I'm alive. There was a muffled sound on the other end, and then her mother's voice came through, high and breaking. Baby, please come home. Whatever's happening, we can fix it. You can't fix this, Mom. Then let the police fix it. They're here. They've been here all night. They want to talk to you. Claire's chest tightened. Put them on. A pause, then a different voice, calm and professional. This is Detective Sarah Reeves. Are you Claire Bennett? Yes. Can you tell me your current location? No. Claire, if you've been taken against your will, I haven't. I left voluntarily. With Adrian Cross? Claire glanced at Adrian. He was watching her, his expression unreadable. Yes. Do you know who Adrian Cross is? I'm starting to. Detective Reeves's tone shifted slightly. Then you know he's dangerous. We have a file on him, Claire. Suspected involvement in weapons trafficking, money laundering, connections to organized crime. If he's threatened you in any way, he hasn't. Then why won't you come in? Because the people who crashed the wedding are still out there, and if I come back, they'll find me. Claire's voice cracked. I can't put my family through that again. We can protect you. You can't. You don't know what you're dealing with. So tell me. Claire closed her eyes. His name is Victor Kane. He's looking for something he thinks Adrian has, and he's willing to kill to get it. There was a pause. Victor Kane. You're sure? That's what Adrian called him. Another pause, longer this time. Claire, listen to me very carefully. If you're with Adrian Cross and Victor Kane is involved, you're in more danger than you realize. These aren't street criminals. I know what they are. Claire's hand tightened on the phone. Just tell my parents I'm okay. Tell Stella I'm sorry her wedding got ruined, and tell them I'll come home when it's safe. Claire, she hung up, handed the phone back to Adrian. Her hands were shaking again. They think you kidnapped me, she said. I know. Are you going to tell me they're wrong? Adrian met her gaze. I didn't kidnap you, but I did pull you into something that might get you killed. So maybe they're not completely wrong. The honesty of it was almost worse than a lie. Claire stood up, needing to move, needing air. She walked to the window and stared out at the empty parking lot. I want the truth, she said without turning around. All of it. No more vague answers. No more deflecting. Okay. What did you move when you were running the operation? Everything. Guns mostly. Sometimes drugs. Sometimes information, stolen data, blackmail material, anything people would pay for. Did you kill anyone? A pause. Not directly. What does that mean? It means I gave orders that resulted in people dying. I made deals with people who killed. I looked the other way when violence happened because it was good for business. His voice was steady, but she could hear the self-loathing underneath. So no, I never pulled a trigger, but I'm not innocent. Claire's stomach turned. And you thought you could just walk away from that, start over. I thought I could try. By lying to people? By pretending to be someone you're not? By trying to become someone better? Adrian stood. I know how this sounds. I know what you must think of me, but everything I told you about wanting to change, about being tired of the person I was, that was real, Claire. You were real. Don't. She spun around. Don't make this about me. Don't act like I was some kind of salvation for you. That's not what I'm saying. Then what are you saying? I'm saying that talking to you made me remember what it felt like to be human, to have someone see me as more than a weapon or a commodity, And maybe that was selfish. Maybe I should have stayed away. But I didn't, and now we're here. And I will do whatever it takes to keep you safe, even if you hate me for it. Claire stared at him. There was something raw in his expression, something that looked almost like desperation. And despite everything, despite the lies and the danger, and the fact that her entire life had been upended in a single night, part of her still wanted to believe him, which made her an idiot. I need air, she said. Claire, I'm not running, I just need air. She pushed past him and stepped outside. The night was cool, the sky starting to lighten at the edges. She walked to the edge of the parking lot and sat down on the curb, her head in her hand. A few minutes later, she heard footsteps. Adrian sat down next to her, leaving a careful distance between them. They sat in silence for a while. Then Adrian spoke. When I was inside the warehouse tied up in that back room, all I could think about was you sitting out there with Victor. And I knew exactly what he was doing. He was getting inside your head, telling you I was using you, that you didn't matter. He looked at her. Was I right? Claire didn't answer. He's good at that, finding the thing that hurts most and twisting the knife. It's why Marcos kept him around for so long. Adrian picked up a small rock and turned it over in his hands. But here's the thing he doesn't understand. You do matter, not because you're leverage or a cover or anything tactical. You matter because for the first time in 3 years, I felt like I wasn't just surviving. I was actually living. That's a lot of pressure to put on someone you barely know, Claire said quietly. You're right, it is, and I'm sorry for that too. The sky was definitely lighter now. Claire could hear birds starting to wake up in the trees behind the motel. Normal sounds, normal world, like the past few hours had been a hallucination. What's your plan? She asked. To end this. I'm working on it. That's not an answer. Adrian was quiet for a moment. Victor wants the list because it's worth money. Names and contacts of everyone Marcos ever did business with, account numbers, shipping routes. In the right hands, it's worth millions. So if I can convince him the list is real and give him something that looks legitimate, he'll let me go. Maybe. And if he doesn't? Adrian's jaw tightened. Then I'll make him. How? However I have to. There was something cold in his voice that made Claire's skin prickle. This was the other Adrian, the one who'd spent 8 years in a world where violence was currency, the one who'd given orders that got people killed. I don't want you to hurt anyone because of me, she said. Then you're going to be disappointed. Adrian? No. He turned to face her fully. You don't get to ask me to play nice. Not with Victor. He held a gun to your head, Claire. He threatened to send you back to me in pieces. So whatever happens next, whatever I have to do to keep you alive, I'm going to do it, and I'm not going to apologize for it. The conviction in his voice should have scared her. Maybe it did. But there was also something steady about it, something that made her feel less like she was drowning. Okay, she said quietly. Adrian blinked. Okay? Okay. Do what you have to do. He studied her face. You're serious. I'm tired, Adrian. I'm scared. And I don't know who to trust anymore. But you came for me. When Victor had me in that warehouse, you came for me. So yeah, I'm serious. Something shifted in Adrian's expression. He reached out slowly, like he was afraid she'd pull away, and took her hand. His palm was warm, calloused. I won't let him hurt you again, he said. Claire squeezed his hand once, then let go. We should get back inside. They stood and walked back to the room. The sun was rising now, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. It should have been beautiful. Instead, it just felt like a countdown. Inside, Adrian's phone buzzed. He checked it, and his expression tightened. What? Claire asked. Marcus found something. Victor's not working alone anymore. He brought in reinforcements. Adrian scrolled through the message. 3 more guys, all from the old crew. They're setting up in a location downtown. Why downtown? Because that's where First National Bank is, where I told him the safety deposit box was. Adrian cursed under his breath. He's going to verify my story, and when he figures out I lied, he'll come looking for us. Yeah, Claire's mind raced. How long do we have? Maybe 12 hours? Maybe less if he's smart about it. Then we need to move first. Adrian looked at her. What are you thinking? I'm thinking Victor expects you to run, to hide, to try and protect me from a distance. Claire's heart was pounding, but her voice was steady. So we do the opposite. We go to him. That's insane. So is everything else that's happened tonight? She crossed her arms. You said you'd do whatever it takes. So let's do it. We give him something he wants, we get him off our backs, and we end this. Claire, you don't understand what you're asking. I understand perfectly. You're going to create a fake list, something convincing enough that he believes it's real. And I'm going to be the one who delivers it. Absolutely not. He won't hurt me if he thinks I'm bringing him what he wants. You don't know that. And you don't know he will. Claire stepped closer. This is my choice, Adrian. You've been making choices for me all night, pulling me out of that warehouse, bringing me here, deciding what I can and can't handle. But this time, I'm deciding. And I'm deciding I'm done being helpless. Adrian stared at her. For a moment, she thought he'd argue. But then something in his expression changed. He nodded slowly. All right. But we do this my way, my rules. And if anything goes wrong, you run. No hesitation. Deal. He pulled out his phone again. I need to make some calls, get the pieces in place. While Adrian worked, Claire sat down and tried to process what she'd just agreed to. 24 hours ago, she'd been standing in a vineyard parking lot, dreading small talk and pitying glances. Now she was planning to walk into the den of a man who'd held a gun to her head. Her phone, her actual phone, which she'd thought was gone, buzzed from inside Adrian's jacket pocket. He must have grabbed it at some point during the escape. He pulled it out and handed it to her. It's been going off for the past hour, he said. Claire looked at the screen, dozens of missed calls. Texts from her mother, her father, Stella. She scrolled through them, her chest tightening with each one. Then she saw one from Stella that made her stop cold. Stella, I need to talk to you. It's important. Please call me. Claire hesitated, then dialed. Stella picked up on the first ring. Claire, oh my God, where are you? I'm safe. I can't tell you more than that. The police are saying you're with him, the man from the wedding. They're saying he's dangerous. It's complicated, Stella. Is he forcing you to stay with him? No. Then why won't you come home? Claire closed her eyes. Because the people who ruined your wedding are still looking for me. And until they're not, I can't. There was a pause, then Stella's voice came through, quieter now. This is my fault. What? The man, Victor, he came to the wedding because of you, because you were there. Which means if I hadn't, her voice broke. If I hadn't invited you, none of this would have happened. Stella, that's not, yes it is. And I need to tell you something. Something I should have told you a long time ago. Stella took a shaky breath. I've been awful to you, Claire. Since the accident, I've pushed you away and made you feel invisible, and I did it because I couldn't handle the guilt. Every time I looked at you, I saw what you gave up to save me. And instead of being grateful, I resented you for it. Claire's throat tightened. Stella, let me finish. Please. Another breath. I told people things about you. About how you weren't handling things well. How you were difficult. I made you sound like a problem so people would stop comparing us. So they'd stop asking why you weren't bouncing back like I did. Her voice cracked. I poisoned people against you, Claire. Our cousins, our friends. I made them think you were fragile and bitter and... Stop! Claire's voice came out harder than she intended. Just stop. I'm sorry. You're sorry. Claire laughed, and it hurt. You spent 4 years making me feel like I was crazy for thinking people were avoiding me. Like I was imagining the way everyone looked at me, and the whole time it was you. You were the one... I know, and I'm so sorry. Sorry doesn't fix this, Stella. I know it doesn't, but I need you to know that I never meant for any of this to happen. I never wanted you to get hurt. Claire wiped at her eyes. Yeah, well, too late for that. Claire, I have to go. Wait, please, just tell me you're going to be okay. Claire looked at Adrian, who was across the room talking quietly into his own phone. I don't know if I'm going to be okay, but I'm going to try. She hung up before Stella could respond. Adrian finished his call and walked over. You all right? Not even close, Claire set her phone down. But we have bigger problems right now. Marcus is in. He's going to create the fake list. Make it look legitimate enough that Victor won't question it immediately. But he says we've only got one shot at this. If Victor figures out it's fake before we get clear, he won't, Buck. You sound sure. I'm not, but I'm done being scared. Claire stood. What do we do now? Now we wait for Marcus to finish the list. Then we set up the meet. Adrian paused. And then we hope like hell this works. The next few hours passed in a blur. Marcus arrived around noon with a USB drive and a laptop, looking like someone who'd spent the past decade behind a desk instead of in the life he and Adrian used to share. He was thin, wiry, with glasses and a nervous energy that made Claire think of a trapped bird. He set up at the motel room's small table and got to work while Adrian paced, and Claire tried not to think about all the ways this could go wrong. Finally, Marcus leaned back. Done. Adrian came over. Show me. Marcus opened the file. It was a spreadsheet, rows and rows of names, numbers, addresses. It looked official, detailed, real. This is good, Adrian said. It should be. I pulled half of it from actual records before I burned my copies. Marcus glanced at Claire. This is really her plan? It was her idea, Adrian said. She knows what she's getting into? Do I look like I know what I'm getting into? Claire asked. Marcus smiled slightly. Fair point. He pulled a phone from his pocket. Here. Burner. Untraceable. Use it to set up the meet. Adrian took the phone. He looked at Claire. Last chance to back out. She shook her head. Make the call. Adrian dialed. It rang 3 times before someone picked up. Victor? Adrian said. It's me. Claire could hear Victor's voice on the other end, muffled but angry. I've got the list, Adrian continued. The real one. And I'm ready to make a trade. More angry sounds. You get the list. I get my life back. Claire gets to go home. Everyone wins. A pause. Then Victor's voice came through clearer. Adrian must have put it on speaker. Where and when? Victor asked. Tomorrow night, Pier 19. Bring 4 people max. I'll bring Claire and the drive. We make the exchange and we're done. How do I know this isn't a setup? You don't. But you also don't have another option. This is the only copy left. Adrian's voice was cold. Take it or leave it. Another pause. Fine. Tomorrow night, 9 p.m. And Adrian, if you try anything, I'll make sure they never find her body. The line went dead. Claire exhaled slowly. He bought it. For now, Marcus said. But you're walking into a trap. You know that, right? He's not just going to let you walk away. I know, Adrian said. That's why we're going to have backup. What kind of backup? Adrian looked at Marcus. The kind you're not going to like. Marcus went pale. No, absolutely not. I'm out of that life, Adrian. I can't. I'm not asking you to get involved directly. I just need you to make a call. One call. To someone who owes me a favor. Who? Adrian told him. Marcus closed his eyes. You're insane. Probably. Will you make the call? A long pause, then Marcus nodded. One call. That's it. After that, I'm gone. That's all I need. Marcus left 20 minutes later, looking like he'd aged 10 years. Claire watched him go, then turned to Adrian. Who did you ask him to call? She asked. Someone who used to work for Marcos. Someone with enough muscle to make Victor think twice about breaking the deal. And if they don't show up? Then we improvise. Claire laughed, sharp and bitter. That's a terrible plan. Yeah, Adrian said. It really is. Night fell. They ate takeout that neither of them tasted and tried to sleep in shifts, though Claire doubted either of them actually managed it. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Victor's face, felt the gun pressed to her temple, heard the gunfire in the warehouse. By the time the sun came up, she felt hollowed out, ready and terrified at the same time. Adrian made coffee using the room's ancient machine. It tasted like burnt water, but Claire drank it anyway. You don't have to do this, Adrian said for what must have been the 10th time. Yes, I do. Claire, if I back out now, what happens? Victor keeps looking for us, keeps threatening my family, keeps ruining lives until he gets what he wants. She set down the coffee cup. This is the only way it ends, so I'm seeing it through. Adrian looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. All right, then let's get ready. They spent the day preparing. Adrian went over the plan 3 times, walking Claire through every step, every contingency, every signal they'd use if things went wrong. She tried to absorb it all, but her mind kept stuttering over the basic impossibility of what they were about to do. Around 4 in the afternoon, Adrian's burner phone rang. He answered, listened, then his expression shifted into something Claire couldn't read. Understood, he said. We'll be ready. He hung up and looked at Claire. That was Marcus. The backup is confirmed. They'll be in position by 8:30. Did he say who it was? No, and I didn't ask. Adrian sat down on the edge of the bed. The less you know, the better. If Victor gets suspicious and starts asking questions, I can't tell him what I don't know. Claire finished. She understood the logic, even if she hated it. They left the motel at 7. Adrian drove a car Marcus had left for them, another unremarkable sedan that blended into traffic. The city lights came into view as they crossed the bridge, and Claire watched them with a strange detachment. This could be the last time she saw this city, the last time she saw anything. She pushed the thought away. Pier 19 was in the industrial district, a stretch of waterfront that had been abandoned when the shipping routes changed a decade ago. Now, it was just empty warehouses and rusting equipment, the kind of place people came when they didn't want to be seen. Adrian parked 2 blocks away. They sat in the car for a moment, neither of them moving. You remember the signals? Adrian asked. If you touch your left ear, I run. If you put your hand in your pocket, I get behind you. If you say my full name, I drop to the ground. And if I tell you to leave, I leave. Claire's voice was steady, even though her hands were shaking. I know the plan, Adrian. He looked at her, and something in his expression cracked. I'm sorry for all of this. For dragging you into my mess, for... Stop apologizing and get us through this alive, Claire interrupted. You can feel guilty later. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. Deal. They got out of the car. The air smelled like salt and oil and decay. Claire could hear water lapping against the pier supports, the distant sound of traffic, nothing else. The whole area felt like a held breath. Adrian reached into the glove compartment and pulled out something small and dark. A gun. Claire's stomach dropped. You said no weapons. I said I'd try to keep this clean, but I'm not walking in there defenseless. He checked the magazine, then tucked the gun into the back of his waistband. Stay close to me. They walked toward the pier. The warehouse loomed ahead, its windows dark, its entrance a gaping mouth. Claire's heart was beating so hard she thought she might pass out. As they got closer, she saw them. Victor and his men, standing near the entrance. 4 of them, just like Adrian had specified. Victor was in the center, arms crossed, looking almost bored. Adrian Cross, Victor called out when they were about 20 feet away. Right on time, I'm impressed. Let's just get this over with, Adrian said. Where's the drive? Adrian held up the USB drive Marcus had prepared. Right here. Where's your boss? Marcos doesn't do field work anymore, you know that. Victor's eyes shifted to Claire. Hello again, sweetheart. You look terrible. She did. She knew she did. She hadn't slept, hadn't showered properly, was still wearing the torn remains of her bridesmaid dress. But she lifted her chin anyway. Feelings mutual. Victor laughed. Got some fight in you after all. I like that. He gestured to Adrian. Bring me the drive. Let's see if you're actually telling the truth this time. Adrian started walking forward. Claire stayed where she was, watching the men flank Victor, watching for any sign of movement. Her missing arm ached, phantom pain that had nothing to do with the limb and everything to do with the adrenaline flooding her system. Adrian stopped about 10 feet from Victor and held out the drive. Victor didn't take it. How do I know this is real? Plug it in and check. I don't have a laptop here, genius. Then I guess you're going to have to trust me. Victor's smile faded. Trust. That's funny, coming from you. He pulled out his phone, typed something, then looked up. My guy at the bank confirmed something interesting today. That safety deposit box you mentioned? It doesn't exist. Never did. Adrian's expression didn't change, but Claire saw his shoulders tense. I gave you the wrong number. Memory's not what it used to be. Really? What's the right number then? 476. Victor stared at him. Then he typed again. Waited. His jaw clenched. Also doesn't exist. Then maybe your guy's looking at the wrong branch. Or maybe you've been lying this whole time. Victor's hand moved to his gun. Which means this drive is worthless, which means you just wasted my time. The drive is real, Adrian said, his voice hard. Everything on there is legitimate, names, accounts, routes. You want to verify it, take it to Marcos, let him check. But I'm done playing games. You're done when I say you're done. Victor pulled his gun out fully now. Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to take the drive, I'm going to take the girl, and you're going to walk away and hope I don't decide to hunt you down anyway. That wasn't the deal. The deal changed. Victor aimed the gun at Claire. So what's it going to be, Adrian? You going to die trying to save her, or are you going to be smart and walk away? Adrian's hand moved toward his back, toward his own gun. I wouldn't, Victor said. My guys have rifles. You pull that weapon, you're dead before it clears your waistband. Claire looked around and saw it. Red laser dots dancing across Adrian's chest. Snipers, somewhere in the surrounding buildings. Adrian's hand stopped moving. Victor smiled. That's better. Now step back. Adrian didn't move. Claire, run. No, she said. Claire, I'm not leaving. Victor laughed. Oh, this is precious. She thinks she's brave. She thinks standing here is going to change anything. He looked at Claire. Sweetheart, you're not brave, you're just stupid. This man destroyed lives for 8 years. He's a criminal, a coward, and a liar. And you think because he sent you some nice messages that makes him worth dying for? I don't think he's worth dying for, Claire said, her voice shaking, but clear. I think I'm done letting people like you decide what I'm worth. Something flickered in Victor's expression. Uncertainty, maybe, or just surprise that she was still talking. Claire took a step forward. You want the drive? Take it. You want Adrian? Take him. But you're not taking me. I'm walking out of here. And if you try to stop me, you're going to have to shoot me in the back. Claire, don't... Adrian started. She ignored him, took another step. Her legs felt like water, but she kept moving. Victor raised his gun higher. Stop. She didn't stop. I said stop. She was 5 feet from him now, close enough to see the frustration in his eyes, close enough to smell the cigarette smoke on his clothes. You're not going to shoot me, she said quietly, because if you do, Adrian will kill you. And even if your snipers kill him, he'll make sure you go down first. You know it. I know it. So let's stop pretending. Victor stared at her. For a long moment, the entire pier was silent. Then he lowered his gun. You've got guts, he said. I'll give you that. Claire's knees almost gave out, but she stayed upright. Victor looked past her at Adrian. She's right, you know. You'd kill me, even knowing it would be the last thing you ever did. Without hesitation, Adrian said. Yeah, I believe you. Victor holstered his gun. Fine, take the girl, give me the drive, and we're done. Adrian held out the USB drive. Victor took it, examined it, then pocketed it. If this is fake, Victor started. It's not. It better not be? Victor stepped back. Go, before I change my mind. Adrian moved to Claire's side, his hand finding hers. They started backing away, not turning their backs, not trusting this. They made it 10 feet, 20. And then Victor called out, Adrian, one more thing. They stopped. Marcos says hello, says he's glad you're still alive, says maybe you two should have a conversation sometime soon. Adrian's hand tightened on Claire's. Tell Marcos I'm retired. Yeah, I'll tell him. Victor smiled. Though we both know retirement doesn't really exist in our line of work. They didn't respond, just kept walking until they reached the car. Adrian opened Claire's door, waited for her to get in, then walked around to the driver's side. He started the engine, pulled away from the curb, drove 3 blocks before either of them spoke. That was insane, Adrian said. I know. You could have been killed. I know. Don't ever do that again. Claire laughed, high and breathless. If we survive this, I'm never doing anything remotely like this ever again. They drove in silence after that. Claire watched the city pass by outside the window, her heart still racing, her mind trying to process what had just happened. She'd faced down a man with a gun. She'd called his bluff. And somehow, impossibly, it had worked. Adrian's phone rang. He answered, listened, then cursed under his breath. What? Claire asked. That was Marcus. He says the drive won't hold up under scrutiny. Victor's going to figure out it's fake within the hour. So we're not actually done. No, we bought ourselves time, that's all. Claire closed her eyes. How much time? Enough to get you somewhere safe. After that, he didn't finish. After that what? You disappear again? Go back into hiding? If that's what it takes? And what happens when Victor finds you? Adrian didn't answer. They drove to a different motel, this one on the outskirts of the city. Adrian checked them in under a false name, paid cash, and led Claire to a room on the second floor. Inside, Claire finally let herself collapse onto the bed. Her whole body was shaking now, adrenaline draining away and leaving nothing but exhaustion. Adrian sat down next to her. You were incredible back there. I was terrified. You didn't show it. Yes, I did. I was shaking the whole time. So was I, Adrian admitted. When you started walking toward him, I thought, his voice caught. I thought I was going to watch you die. Claire looked at him. In the dim light of the motel room, he looked younger somehow, more vulnerable. But you didn't try to stop me. Because you were right. It was the only play that had a chance of working. He ran a hand through his hair. I've spent my whole life calculating odds, measuring risks, making moves, and in 1 minute you did what I couldn't. You changed the equation. I didn't change anything. We're still in danger. Victor's still out there. Yeah, but you're alive, and that's what matters. Claire wanted to argue, wanted to point out all the ways this wasn't over, all the ways they were still trapped. But she was so tired, and Adrian's presence next to her was the only thing keeping her from falling apart completely. What happens now? She asked quietly. Now you rest. Tomorrow, I get you home. And then? And then I deal with the fallout. Alone. That's how it has to be. Claire sat up. No, it's not. Claire, you keep trying to push me away. Keep trying to protect me by cutting me out. But I'm already in this, Adrian. I've been in it since the moment you walked into that wedding. She turned to face him fully. So stop treating me like I'm fragile. Stop making decisions for me. And tell me what you're actually planning. Adrian was quiet for a long moment. Then he exhaled. I'm planning to go back to Marcos. Claire's stomach dropped. What? It's the only way to end this. Victor works for Marcos. If I can convince Marcos to call him off, by doing what? Going back to work for him? If that's what it takes. That's insane. You left because you couldn't stomach that life anymore. And now you're just going to what? Pretend the last 3 years didn't happen? I'm going to do whatever keeps you safe. At the cost of yourself. Yes. The certainty in his voice broke something inside her. Claire stood up, paced to the window, then back. I didn't ask for this. I didn't ask you to sacrifice yourself for me. I know. Then why are you doing it? Adrian stood too. Because in 3 months of talking to you, you made me feel like a person again. Like I was more than the sum of my mistakes. And I'm not going to let Victor or Marcos or anyone else hurt you because of choices I made years ago. Even if it destroys you. Even then. Claire stared at him. This man who'd lied to her, who'd pulled her into a nightmare, who'd also been the only person in years to make her feel seen. It didn't make sense. None of it made sense. There has to be another way, she said. There isn't. Then we find one. Claire's voice was firm now. You don't get to make this decision alone. Not anymore. Claire. No, listen to me. You spent years running an operation, right? Making deals, finding angles. So find an angle now. Find something Marcos wants more than revenge. Find something Victor wants more than the list. She stepped closer. You're smart, Adrian. Smarter than you're giving yourself credit for. So think. Adrian looked at her, really looked at her, and slowly something shifted in his expression. There might be one thing, he said quietly. What? Marcos has a problem. A territory dispute with another crew. He's been trying to negotiate, but it's not working. If I could solve that problem for him, he'd consider the debt paid. Maybe. Then that's what we do. Adrian shook his head. It's not that simple. The crew he's fighting with, they're dangerous. More dangerous than Victor. And solving the problem would mean He stopped. Would mean what? Would mean doing things I swore I'd never do again. Claire understood. Violence. Maybe worse, the kind of things that had made him leave in the first place. Is there any other option? She asked. Not one that keeps you safe. She closed her eyes. This was the choice then. Let Adrian destroy himself to protect her, or let him become the person he'd tried to leave behind. Neither option was good, but one of them at least gave him a chance. Then we do it together, Claire said. Whatever it takes. But you don't go alone. You're not coming with me. Absolutely not. I'm not asking permission. Claire. You said I changed the equation back there on the pier. You said I did what you couldn't, so let me help now. Let me be part of the solution instead of just the problem you're trying to solve. Adrian stared at her. You have no idea what you're asking. Then explain it to me. He did. Over the next hour, he laid it all out. The territory dispute, the violence, the delicate negotiation that would be required, the likelihood that someone, maybe multiple someones, would end up dead. Claire listened, and with each word she felt the last remnants of her old life falling away. The girl who'd stood invisible at her sister's wedding, the girl who'd let people treat her like she was broken. That girl was gone. In her place was someone harder, someone who'd looked down the barrel of a gun and walked forward anyway. I'm still coming with you, Claire said when Adrian finished. You don't have to do this. Yes, I do. Because if I let you walk away now, I'll spend the rest of my life wondering if you made it out alive, and I can't do that. She met his gaze. So we do this together. We solve Marcos's problem. We get Victor off our backs, and then... She paused. Then we figure out what comes next. Adrian reached out and took her hand. His grip was warm, solid, real. You're sure? I've never been less sure of anything in my life, Claire admitted, but I'm doing it anyway. A small smile crossed his face. You know, when I first messaged you on that forum, I thought I was just talking to someone who understood what it felt like to be broken. I never imagined... He stopped. I never imagined you'd be this strong. I'm not strong. I'm just tired of being afraid. That's the same thing. Maybe it was. Claire didn't know anymore. Adrian made a call. Claire heard him speak in low tones, arranging a meeting with Marcos for the next morning. When he hung up, his expression was grim. It's set, he said. Tomorrow at 10, Marcos's office. And if he says no, then we run, far and fast, and hope it's enough. They spent the rest of the night planning. Adrian went over everything he knew about Marcos's operation, about the rival crew, about the players involved. Claire absorbed it all, trying to understand the world she was stepping into. Around 3 a.m, they finally stopped. Adrian stretched out on one of the beds, Claire on the other. The silence between them was heavy, but not uncomfortable. Claire? Adrian's voice came through the darkness. Yeah? Thank you. For what? For not running, for staying, for... He paused. For seeing something in me worth saving. Claire thought about that. About all the reasons she should have run, should have gone to the police, should have let Adrian handle this alone. And about the one reason she hadn't. You saw me first, she said quietly, before anyone else did, before I even saw myself. So yeah, I'm staying. She heard him exhale. Okay. Okay. They lay there in the dark, neither of them sleeping, both of them knowing that tomorrow would change everything. The morning came too fast. Claire woke to find Adrian already up, dressed, his expression set in hard lines. Ready? He asked. No, she wasn't ready, but she nodded anyway. They drove to Marcos's office, a legitimate import business that served as a front for everything else he ran. The building was downtown, modern glass and steel, the kind of place that looked completely ordinary from the outside. Inside, it was a different story. Security everywhere. Cameras. Men in suits who watched them with flat, dangerous eyes. They were escorted to an elevator, then to the top floor. The doors opened onto a reception area that looked like it belonged to a corporate law firm. Sleek furniture, abstract art. Nothing that suggested the man who ran this place had built his empire on violence. A woman at the desk gestured them toward a door. Mr. Reyes is expecting you. Adrian's hand found Claire's. Squeezed once. Then they walked through the door together. Marcos Reyes sat behind a massive desk, his hands folded, his expression unreadable. He was older than Claire expected, mid-50s maybe, with silver threading through his dark hair. He looked like someone's uncle, harmless. Claire knew better than to trust that. "Adrian," Marcos said. His voice was smooth, cultured. "It's been a long time." "Not long enough," Adrian replied. Marcos smiled. "And this must be Claire, the woman who's caused so much trouble." Claire lifted her chin. "I didn't cause anything." "No? Then why is Victor calling me at 2 in the morning, demanding I authorize a full hunt for you and Adrian?" "Because Adrian has something you want, and Victor's too proud to admit he got played." Marcos's smile widened. "You've got fire. I like that." He leaned back in his chair. "Sit, both of you. Let's talk about what happens next." They sat. Claire's heart was pounding, but she kept her face calm. Marcos looked at Adrian. "Victor tells me the drive you gave him is fake." "It is," Adrian admitted. "So you lied to me." "I lied to buy time." "Time for what?" "Time to offer you something better than a list of old contacts." Adrian leaned forward. "I hear you've got a problem with the Castellano crew. Territory dispute that's costing you money and getting messy." Marcus's expression didn't change. "Where did you hear that?" "I still have sources, and I still know how to solve problems like this." "You've been out of the game for 3 years." "Doesn't mean I forgot how to play." Marcos studied him. Then he looked at Claire. "And what's her role in this?" "She stays safe," Adrian said. "That's non-negotiable." "Everything's negotiable, Adrian. You should know that." Marcos stood, walked to the window. "But let's say I'm interested. What exactly are you proposing?" "I broker a deal with Castellano. End the dispute. Get him to back off your territory without it turning into a war. And if you can't, then I handle it another way." "By handle it, you mean whatever it takes." Marcos turned. "And if I agree to this, you want what in return? Your freedom? Victor off your back?" "Both. Plus Claire walks away clean, no threats, no surveillance, no repercussions. That's a lot to ask for one negotiation. I'm offering you peace instead of war. That's worth more than whatever was on that list." Marcos considered this. The silence stretched. Claire barely breathed. Finally, Marcos nodded. "All right. You've got 72 hours. Solve my Castellano problem and we're square. You, Victor, all of it. Finished. And Claire? Untouchable. You have my word." "Your word means something." Marcos smiled coldly. "When it comes to business, always." Adrian stood, extended his hand. Marcos shook it. 72 hours, Marcos repeated. "Don't waste them." They left the office, got back in the elevator, made it to the car before Claire finally spoke. "We just made a deal with the devil." "Yeah," Adrian said. "We really did." The 72 hours started the moment they left Marcus's building. Adrian drove them to a diner across town, one with peeling vinyl booths and coffee that tasted like it had been sitting on the burner since yesterday. They needed to think, and Adrian said he always thought better with bad coffee. Claire stirred her cup without drinking it. "So how do you broker peace between two groups who want to kill each other?" "Very carefully." Adrian pulled out his phone and started scrolling through old contacts. "First, I need to figure out what Castellano actually wants. Territory disputes are never just about territory. There's always something underneath." "Like what?" "Money, respect, revenge. Could be anything." He stopped scrolling, his expression darkening. "I know someone who might have information, but calling her means opening a door I've kept closed for 3 years. "Her?" "Elena Voss. She used to handle intelligence for both crews. Neutral party. If anyone knows what's really driving this fight, it's her." "So call her." Adrian hesitated. "Elena and I have history. Not good history." "Does that history matter more than getting out of this alive?" He looked at her. "No, it doesn't." He made the call. Claire watched his face change as someone answered. Tension in his jaw. Something almost like regret in his eyes. The conversation was brief, clipped, and when he hung up, he looked older. "She'll meet us, tonight, neutral ground." He drained his coffee. But she wants to meet you too. Me? Why? Because she doesn't believe I'd risk coming back for just anyone. She wants to see what kind of person would make me do something this stupid. They spent the rest of the day preparing. Adrian briefed Claire on Elena, former military intelligence, brilliant and ruthless, someone who'd built a career on knowing everyone's secrets. She'd left the government after some kind of incident Adrian wouldn't elaborate on and had gone private, selling information to whoever paid best. She's going to ask you questions, Adrian warned. Personal ones. She'll try to figure out if you're a liability. What should I tell her? The truth. Elena can smell a lie from a mile away. They met Elena in a wine bar in the financial district. It was the kind of place where a glass of mediocre red cost $20, and everyone pretended to know what they were tasting. Elena was already there when they arrived, sitting at a corner table, a glass of something dark in front of her. She was younger than Claire expected, maybe 40, with sharp features and eyes that missed nothing. She looked them over as they approached, her gaze lingering on Claire. So this is her, Elena said. The girl who brought Adrian Cross out of retirement. I didn't bring him anywhere, Claire said, sitting down. He showed up on his own. Elena smiled. I like her already. She turned to Adrian. You look terrible. It's been a rough week. I heard about the wedding. Victor always did have a flair for drama. Elena sipped her wine. What do you need from me? Information on the Castellano dispute. What's really driving it? That's expensive information. Name your price. Elena set down her glass. I want to know why. Why come back after 3 years of silence? Why risk everything for... She gestured at Claire. This. Adrian's jaw tightened. That's personal. And my information is valuable. So answer the question or we're done here. Claire spoke before Adrian could. Because he's trying to protect me. Because I got pulled into his past and now we're trying to find a way out. And because apparently he thinks I'm worth it. She met Elena's gaze. That answer your question? Elena studied her. You know what he used to do, right? The things he's done? I know. And you're here anyway? I'm here anyway. Something shifted in Elena's expression. Interesting. She turned back to Adrian. The Castellano dispute isn't about territory. It's about Antonio Castellano's brother, Paolo. Adrian went very still. What about Paolo? He's dead. Killed 6 months ago in what looked like a random robbery. But Antonio doesn't believe it was random. He thinks Marcos ordered the hit. Did he? No. But someone wanted Antonio to think he did. Someone who benefits from them tearing each other apart. Who? Elena smiled. That's the expensive part. Adrian pulled out his wallet. How much? I don't want your money, Adrian. Elena leaned forward. I want a favor. One favor, no questions asked, to be called in when I need it. That's a blank check. That's the price. Adrian looked at Claire. She nodded. What choice did they have? Fine, Adrian said. One favor. Elena pulled out her phone and slid it across the table. On the screen was a photo of a man, late 30s, expensive suit, cold smile. Marcos Santos. He runs a smaller operation, nothing compared to Marcos or Castellano, but ambitious. He's been feeding Antonio false information about Paolo's death, planting evidence that points to Marcos. When they go to war, Santos moves in and takes whatever's left. So we expose Santos. It's not that simple. Santos has already convinced Antonio. You'd need proof. Hard, undeniable proof. And Santos is smart. He doesn't leave evidence lying around. Claire spoke up. What if we got Antonio to talk to us? If we could show him he's being played? Antonio doesn't trust anyone, especially not someone who used to work for Marcos. Elena looked at Adrian. He'd shoot you on sight. Then we don't go through Antonio, Claire said. We go through someone he does trust. Elena raised an eyebrow. Who did you have in mind? Paolo's widow, if she's still alive. Elena's smile widened. Now, that's interesting. Yes, Maria Castellano is alive. And yes, she's the only person Antonio listens to anymore. But getting to her won't be easy. She's under constant protection. Can you arrange a meeting? Adrian asked. I can try, but it'll cost you another favor. Elena, relax. This one's on the house. Call it professional curiosity. I want to see if you two can actually pull this off. She finished her wine and stood. I'll reach out to Maria. If she agrees, I'll let you know. Until then, stay out of sight. Santos has people watching for you. She left. Claire and Adrian sat in silence for a moment. 2 favors to Elena Voss, Adrian said quietly. That's going to come back to haunt me. We'll deal with it when it does. Claire looked at him. Do you think Maria will talk to us? I don't know. If she's anything like I remember, she's grieving and angry. That makes people unpredictable. They left the wine bar and went back to the motel. The waiting was the worst part. Claire tried to sleep but couldn't. Every sound made her jump. Every car that drove past made her wonder if Santos had found them. Around midnight, Adrian's phone buzzed. He read the message, then looked at Claire. Maria agreed. Tomorrow afternoon. A church in Little Italy. A church? Neutral ground. No weapons allowed. Elena will be there to mediate. Claire nodded. Okay, so we convince a grieving widow that her husband's death is being used to start a war. Simple. Adrian almost smiled. Nothing about this is simple. They arrived at the church the next day at 2 in the afternoon. It was old, built sometime in the early 1900s, with stained glass windows and the smell of incense and old wood. Elena was waiting outside. She's inside, Elena said. Front pew. And she's not alone. She brought her brother-in-law, Antonio. Adrian cursed. You said she'd come alone. I said I'd arrange a meeting. I didn't say I could control who she brought. Elena shrugged. Consider it a bonus. If you convince her, you convince him too. They walked inside. The church was dim, quiet except for the echo of their footsteps. Maria Castellanos sat in the front pew, dressed in black, her face pale. Next to her was a man who had to be Antonio, broad-shouldered, dark-eyed, radiating barely controlled fury. Antonio stood when he saw Adrian. His hand went to his jacket. No weapons, Elena said sharply. That was the deal. Antonio's hand stayed where it was. You've got 5 minutes, Cross. Then I'm walking out and you're a dead man. Adrian stopped a few feet away. I'm not here to fight. I'm here because you're being played. By who? Marcos Santos. Antonio's expression didn't change. Santos is a friend. He brought me evidence about Paulo. Evidence he fabricated, Adrian interrupted. Santos wants you and Marcos to go to war so he can move in afterward. Paulo's death had nothing to do with Marcos. You're lying. I'm not. And I can prove it. Maria spoke for the first time, her voice soft but steady. How? Adrian looked at her. The robbery that killed Paulo. The police report said he was killed for his wallet and watch. But Paulo never wore a watch. He had a scar on his wrist from a childhood accident and was self-conscious about it. Anyone who knew him would know that. Maria's breath caught. How do you know about the scar? Because Paulo and I did business years ago. Before I left, he was good people. Adrian's voice softened. I'm sorry for your loss, but Santos is using Paulo's death to manipulate you. The evidence he gave you, the witness statements, the financial records linking Marcos to the hit, it's all manufactured. Prove it, Antonio demanded. Adrian pulled out a folder Elena had given him. These are the real financial records from the night Paulo died. Santos doctored the ones he showed you. You can verify this with your own people. Antonio grabbed the folder, flipped through it. His expression darkened with each page. Maria stood. If what you're saying is true, if Santos really... Her voice broke. Why? Why would he do this? Because he's ambitious and ruthless. Because he knows that if you and Marcos destroy each other, he can take everything you've built. Claire spoke now, her voice gentle. Your husband died because he was in the wrong place at the wrong time, not because of some conspiracy. And Santos is trying to turn that tragedy into a war. Maria looked at Claire, really looked at her. Who are you? Someone who understands what it's like to have people use you for their own purposes. Claire met her gaze. I'm sorry about your husband, but don't let Santos turn his death into something it wasn't. Antonio threw the folder down. If this is true, Santos is a dead man. That's not going to solve anything, Adrian said. You kill Santos, you start another war. More people die. More families get destroyed. He paused. Or you let me handle it. Let me arrange a meeting with Marcos and Santos. We expose what Santos did. We end this without more bloodshed. And why would you do that? Antonio demanded. What's in it for you? My freedom and hers, Adrian gestured to Claire. We're trying to get out, and the only way we can do that is if this dispute ends. Antonio and Maria exchanged a look. Some silent communication passed between them. Finally, Maria nodded. All right, you have 48 hours. If you can prove Santos orchestrated this, we'll stand down. But if you're lying, I'm not lying, Adrian said. They left the church. Claire's legs were shaking, but she managed to stay upright until they got back to the car. That went better than expected, Elena said. Don't jinx it, Adrian replied. Now comes the hard part. The hard part was convincing Marcos to meet with Santos while Antonio watched. Adrian spent the next 12 hours making calls, calling in favors, and piecing together a plan that had about 1,000 ways to go wrong. Finally, he arranged it. Neutral location, a warehouse in the industrial district. Marcos, Santos, and Antonio would all be there. Elena would moderate, and Adrian would present the evidence. And if Santos doesn't confess? Claire asked. Then we improvise, Adrian said. Again. They arrived at the warehouse an hour before the scheduled meeting. Adrian walked the perimeter, checking exits, looking for problems. Claire stayed close, watching him work. You're good at this, she said. At what? Reading situations, planning, staying calm when everything's falling apart. Adrian stopped walking. I had a lot of practice. Do you miss it? The life you left behind? He was quiet for a long moment. Sometimes. Not the violence, not the fear, but the clarity. Knowing exactly who I was and what I was supposed to do. He looked at her. But then I think about the person I was becoming. Cold, empty, and I remember why I left. And now? Now I'm somewhere in between. Not who I was, not who I wanted to be, just trying to survive. That's all any of us can do, Claire said quietly. The others started arriving. Marcos came first, flanked by 2 bodyguards. Then Antonio, alone but clearly armed. Finally, Santos, smiling like this was a social call. Elena stepped into the center of the warehouse. Gentlemen, we're here to settle this dispute once and for all. Adrian has evidence that changes everything. Santos's smile didn't waver. Evidence? How dramatic. Adrian stepped forward. You told Antonio that Marcos ordered Paulo's death. You provided documents, witness statements, financial records. All of it pointed to Marcos. Because it was true, Santos said smoothly. Except it wasn't. Adrian laid out the real financial records. These are the actual transactions from that night. The ones you showed Antonio were altered. You hired someone to kill Paulo and make it look like a robbery. Then you framed Marcos for it. Santos's smile finally faded. That's quite an accusation. It's the truth. And I have the witness to prove it. Adrian nodded to Elena. Elena pulled out her phone and played a recording. A man's voice filled the warehouse, shaky, scared, but clear. Santos paid me $10,000 to kill Paulo Castellano. Said to make it look like a robbery. Said there'd be more money after. I didn't know he was going to frame Marcos. I needed the money. The recording ended. Marcos's expression was carved from ice. Where did you get this? Elena has sources, Adrian said. Good ones. Santos took a step back. This is fabricated, a setup. Antonio moved fast. He had his gun out and pointed at Santos before anyone could react. You killed my brother. You used his death to turn me into a weapon against Marcos. Antonio, wait. Santos's composure finally cracked. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. Paulo wasn't supposed to be there that night. It was just business went wrong. Business. Antonio's voice was deadly quiet. You killed my brother for business. Antonio. Marcos spoke now, his voice cutting through the tension. Put the gun down. Why? So you can do it instead? No. So we can do this the right way. Marcos turned to Santos. You wanted a war, you almost got one. But instead, you're going to disappear. Tonight. You're going to dismantle your operation, liquidate your assets, and leave this city. If I ever see you again, there won't be a conversation. Santos looked around the warehouse, saw Marcos's cold fury, Antonio's rage, Adrian's steady gaze, and finally understood he'd lost. "Fine," Santos said. "I'm gone." "You have 12 hours," Marcos said. After that, I stopped being reasonable. Santos left without another word. The warehouse fell silent. Marcos turned to Antonio. "I'm sorry about Paolo. I didn't know. If I had—" "You would have done what?" Antonio lowered his gun. "Prevented it? You couldn't have?" "No, but I wouldn't have let Santos use it against us both." Marcos extended his hand. "We done fighting?" Antonio stared at the hand. Then he shook it. "We're done." Marcos looked at Adrian. "Impressive work. You solved my problem. We're square." "And Victor?" "I'll call him off. You and the girl walk away clean, like we agreed." Adrian nodded. "Thank you. Don't thank me. Just disappear again. And this time, stay disappeared." Marcos left. Antonio followed. Soon it was just Adrian, Claire, and Elena. Elena smiled. "Well, that was entertaining." "You got your recording pretty fast," Adrian said. "I have my methods." She pocketed her phone. "Remember, Adrian, you owe me 2 favors now. I'll collect eventually." "I know." Elena left. Adrian and Claire stood in the empty warehouse, the weight of the past 72 hours finally settling on them. "Is it over?" Claire asked. "Yeah, it's over." She wanted to feel relieved, triumphant, something, but all she felt was exhausted. They went back to the motel one last time. Adrian made the final calls to Marcos, confirming the deal was done. To Marcus, thanking him for the help. To Victor, who apparently took the news of his dismissal with surprising grace. Then he turned to Claire. "You can go home now. Back to your family. Back to your life." "What about you?" "I'll disappear. Find somewhere quiet. Start over again." Claire looked at him. This man who'd lied to her, saved her, pulled her into chaos, and then fought to get her out of it. "Is that what you want?" "What I want doesn't matter." "Yes, it does." She stepped closer. "You spent 3 years trying to be someone different, someone better, and then you came back to your old life to save me. So what happens now? You just run away again? What else is there? You could stay, not in this city, not in this life, but with me. We could figure it out together." Adrian stared at her. "Claire, you don't owe me anything. I'm not offering because I owe you. I'm offering because in the middle of all this insanity, you were the only thing that felt real." Her voice shook, but she kept going. "I spent 4 years being invisible, being the broken twin that everyone pitied. And you saw me. You made me feel like I mattered. So yeah, maybe it started as a lie. Maybe you were just some criminal trying to be better. But somewhere along the way, it became something else. And I'm not ready to walk away from that." Adrian's defenses were crumbling. She could see it in his eyes. "You deserve better than someone like me." "Maybe, but I get to decide what I deserve. And right now I'm deciding you're worth the risk." He closed the distance between them. His hand came up to cup her face, his touch gentle, despite the violence those hands had committed. "If we do this," he said quietly, "I need you to understand something. I'm never going back to that life. Not for Marcos, not for anyone. I'm done." "I know. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to be the person you think I am." "You already are." She leaned into his touch. "You just need to believe it." He kissed her then. Soft at first, then deeper, like he was pouring everything he couldn't say into that one gesture. And Claire kissed him back, feeling something inside her finally settle into place. When they pulled apart, Adrian was smiling. "So what now?" "Now we go home. Talk to my family, figure out how to explain all of this." "That's going to be a fun conversation." "Probably not, but we'll handle it." She took his hand. Together. They left the motel the next morning, drove back to the city, back to the vineyard where this whole mess had started. Claire's parents were there, Stella too. They'd been staying at the venue, waiting for Claire to come back. When the car pulled up, her mother ran out, tears streaming down her face. "Claire, oh thank God!" Claire got out of the car and let herself be pulled into a hug. Her mother was crying, her father was hovering, and Stella stood on the porch looking guilty and relieved in equal measure. "I'm okay," Claire said. "I'm safe." Her father looked past her at Adrian, who was getting out of the car. He's with you? Yes. Claire, the police said he's dangerous. He is. He was. But he's also the reason I'm standing here. Claire pulled back from her mother. I know you don't understand. I know you're scared, but I need you to trust me. Her parents exchanged a look. Then her mother nodded. All right, come inside, all of you. Let's talk. They spent the next 2 hours explaining everything, or at least a version of everything that wouldn't send her parents into cardiac arrest. Claire told them about meeting Adrian online, about the forum, about how he'd shown up at the wedding because she'd asked him to. She left out the smuggling, the violence, the deals with criminals. Adrian filled in the rest. Carefully, tactfully. He explained that people from his past had found him, that he'd been trying to protect Claire, that everything was resolved now. Claire's father didn't look convinced. And we're supposed to just trust that this is over? You don't have to trust me, Adrian said, but you can trust that I would never let anything happen to Claire. Not again. Stella spoke up from where she'd been sitting quietly. Can I talk to Claire? Alone? Claire nodded. They walked outside down to the edge of the vineyard. I'm sorry, Stella said immediately, for everything I said the other night, for everything I've done over the past 4 years. I was jealous and bitter, and I took it out on you, and I almost got you killed because of it. You didn't almost get me killed. That was on me. Claire looked at her sister. But yeah, you hurt me. A lot. I know, and I don't expect you to forgive me right away, but I want to try to make it right, however long it takes. Claire considered this. The anger was still there, the hurt, but underneath it was something else, the memory of being kids together, of being two halves of a whole before everything got complicated. Okay, Claire said quietly. We can try. Stella's eyes filled with tears. Thank you. They stood there for a moment, two sisters who'd spent years growing apart, starting the slow process of finding their way back together. That night, Claire and Adrian stayed at a hotel near the vineyard. Tomorrow, they'd figure out where to go next, what city to move to, what kind of life they wanted to build. But tonight, they just existed. Two people who'd been broken in different ways, finding something whole in each other. Claire? Adrian's voice came through the darkness. Yeah? Thank you for choosing me, for seeing something in me worth saving. She rolled over to face him. You saved yourself, Adrian. I just reminded you why it mattered. He pulled her closer, and for the first time in longer than Claire could remember, she felt safe, seen, like she wasn't just the invisible twin anymore. She was Claire Bennett, the woman who'd walked into danger and come out stronger, the woman who'd looked at a man's worst parts and chosen to see his best, the woman who'd finally learned that being broken didn't make her less. It made her real. 6 months later, Claire stood in the same vineyard where everything had started. But this time, she wasn't hiding in the background. She was front and center, wearing a dress she'd chosen herself, one that didn't try to hide her missing arm, but celebrated it instead. The prosthetic she wore was beautiful, custom designed with delicate metalwork that caught the light. Around her, people gathered, her family, Adrian's new friends, people from the legitimate business he'd started, far from his old life, and Marcus Chen, who'd somehow become an unlikely ally. Stella stood beside her as maid of honor, their relationship still healing but stronger than it had been in years. Her parents were in the front row, her father's expression cautiously approving as he watched Adrian wait at the altar. Adrian, who'd kept his promise, who'd built a new life, a legitimate one, helping people navigate career transitions, especially those trying to leave dangerous situations behind, who'd proven every day that people could change if they wanted it badly enough. The ceremony was simple. No elaborate vows, no grand declarations, just two people who'd found each other in the darkness and decided to walk toward the light together. When the officiant pronounced them married, Adrian kissed her like she was the only person in the world, and Claire kissed him back, feeling the weight of everything they'd survived and everything they'd overcome. Later, at the reception, her mother pulled her aside. "Are you happy?" she asked. Claire looked across the room at Adrian, who was laughing at something Marcus said, looking lighter than she'd ever seen him. "Yeah, Mom," she said. "I really am." "Even with everything that happened? Everything you went through?" Claire thought about the question. about the fear and the violence and the impossible choices, about discovering strengths she didn't know she had, about learning that being seen was sometimes worth the risk. Especially because of it, she said finally. I spent 4 years being invisible, being safe, and I was miserable. Sometimes the things that break us are the same things that teach us how strong we really are. Her mother hugged her tight. When did you get so wise? When I stopped letting other people decide what I was worth. The reception continued into the night, dancing and laughter and toasts that made everyone cry. At one point, Elena Voss appeared, uninvited but not unwelcome, and handed Adrian an envelope. Your first favor, she said. Calling it in. Adrian's expression tightened. Now? Relax, it's easy. I need you to consult on something. One meeting, that's all. She smiled at Claire. Congratulations, by the way. You two actually made it work. I'm impressed. She left as mysteriously as she'd arrived. Should I be worried? Claire asked. Probably, Adrian admitted. But we'll handle it like we handle everything else. Together? Always. As the night wound down and guests started leaving, Claire and Adrian slipped away to a quiet corner of the vineyard. The same place Claire had stood 6 months ago, dreading a night of being overlooked. You know what the funny part is? Claire said. If you hadn't shown up at that wedding, none of this would have happened. Victor wouldn't have found us. I wouldn't have ended up in a warehouse with a gun to my head. We wouldn't have had to make deals with criminals. Is there a point to this trip down memory lane? The point is, I wouldn't trade it, any of it, because it led here. To this. She gestured at the vineyard, the lights, the life they were building. To us. Adrian looked at her, really looked at her. You're remarkable, you know that? I'm just someone who got tired of being invisible. No, you're someone who chose to be seen, even when it was dangerous, even when it was terrifying. That takes courage most people don't have. Claire leaned into him. So do you. Choosing to leave that life. Choosing to be better. That took courage too. They stood there as the last guests filtered out, as the lights dimmed, as the vineyard settled into quiet. Two people who'd been broken in different ways, who'd found each other in chaos, who'd chosen love over fear. The invisible twin and the reformed criminal. Not a fairy tale ending, just a real one, messy and complicated and hard one, and absolutely worth it.